Welcome. Come with me. The doctors will see you now.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Fast Talks with Family Docs. I'm Dr. Phil Palmer.
And I'm Dr. Veer Vedala.
Veer, good to have you back again.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome back to the listeners and viewers to the second half of our first YouTube channel episode. And we're continuing the conversation with each other just to give the followers of the podcast a chance to get to know the hosts a little bit better. So at the end of the last episode, we were kind of talking about our involvement with the OAFP. So and you'd also mentioned Dr. Crawford being a motivation for you. But tell me in more detail, how did you first start engaging with the OAFP, either as a student or a resident, and what have you been able to do since then?
Yeah. Okay. I got to give a lot of props to our amazing friend Carrie Weber here, because Carrie and I's journey has been pretty long, and it started when I was a fourth year med student, right? Okay. And I mentioned I didn't know I was going to do family medicine, and everybody, a couple of my friends who had just gone to residency are like, you got to go to the national conference. You got to go to the national conference. And I reached out to Carrie, and at that time they were sending students with a little, sending students to the national conference. I think we still do that with an endorsement, and we get to go there and get a room and stuff and get to hang out. And I think that was probably one of the best experiences I had. And when I went there, I met a lot of people that were in the academy, and I got introduced to the family medicine interest group, and then I got really involved in that interest group and ended up being the vice president of that interest group fourth year of my medical school. And that's probably my first journey into the A Academy, right? Not Oklahoma Academy was the first thing. When I went to residency, that inspired me, so I got involved in the Kansas Academy of Family Physicians, and then I became a resident delegate in the resident constituent, right? And I was technically an alternate delegate, but the regular delegate wasn't able to be there, so I got to go get involved in what advocacy is about and what how resolutions are made, and how I can get involved and how to vote. And after I did that and came back to OU, I got in touch with Carrie again, and that really allowed me to be the new physician delegate and be back involved in advocacy. Yeah. And I've been doing that every year, actually. I think I missed 1 year, and that's been my hugest learning point. And since then, I was really scared to even go up there and talk and give my thoughts about a specific resolution in the beginning, and now I've written multiple resolutions, and I got the courage to even run for an office. I didn't win, but I got up there, and I think I think a lot of credit goes to mentors like Carrie here, and people that are at the NCCL with me, like Dr. Dennis or Dr. Naidu, telling me you should go run. You should go run. You should go run. Put yourself out there.
For sure. So did you run for a delegate position or for the new physician member of the board? What did you run for?
I ran for the new physician member of the board.
Excellent.
They had great candidates. It was really funny. The guy that actually won, me and him were practicing our speeches together and like showing off each other. And then I was really glad. It was a little bromance at the end. We were just really happy for each other. It was great. But amazing people that go to these things. So
yeah.
What about you, sir? I'm sure you've got plenty of stories and a lot of successes and wins.
Yeah, so I got enrolled as a student and started getting the American Family Physician Journal, and so that was something that I enjoyed reading as a student and looking at some of the articles that were out there. As a resident, continued to have some degree of involvement, as I'd mentioned in our last episode, that there were quarterly CME offerings that residents were invited to go to, and I don't know if the member docs had to pay for their meal. I don't think so, because I think that was all back in the day where oftentimes pharmaceutical companies would bring a sponsor in and would have money to provide the meal for the docs to get together for that evening to hear about that topic. But I do know as a resident, I could go for free and a spouse could come along with me. And so as a poor resident, being able to take my wife to a nice dinner 4 times a year that otherwise I would not be able to afford, that was a great opportunity just for us. Yeah. But then by doing that, sitting at tables with other family docs and them asking about me and about my wife and getting to learn a little more about them just brought about some engagement, let me know more about what the Academy could do.
Yeah.
And then I remember when Sam Blackstock, who preceded Carrie as the executive vice president, he'd only been in his position a very short time. And it came to my attention that an insurer in the state of Oklahoma was putting out, so back in the day, it was a booklet listing how you could find a doctor and the different doctors and the different specialties in the different cities. There was nothing online. It was a booklet that they published.
Yeah.
And so I got a copy of that booklet, and in the front of the booklet it said, well, if you're a man, then an adult male, you should get an internal medicine doctor. And if you're an adult female, then you might want to consider getting an OBGYN. And if you have children between the ages of birth to 18, they should get a pediatrician. And nowhere in there was there a family doctor.
Right.
And so I called Sam up and said, Sam, this is a problem to me. And as a dues-paying member, the OAFP ought to be doing something about this. Family docs ought to be represented on this list. And Sam said, you're right, and I want you to come to our board meeting and talk to the board about that as to what you noticed so we can discuss what to do.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'd be happy to do that. So I showed up at the board meeting and sat there and listened to them kind of conduct their business, and it got to the agenda with me, and Sam introduced me, and I shared that a little bit with the board and said the board needs to do something. And Sam looked at the board and said, I want you guys to know I've already got an appointment with the chief medical officer of this insurance company, and Phil and I are going to go and talk to him and explain our concerns and ask them to change it. And I looked at Sam and went, Phil's going? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm going. You're supposed to do this. And he's like, no, I'm not going to have the passion that you have, and I'm not going to be able to explain your concerns the way you can as a physician, and you need to come with me.
Right.
And so I got that opportunity and thought I was going to pass out and die when we went in that guy's office. But he said, you're right, and we simply overlooked that. And the next edition of the book we print in 6 months will have family medicine listed in there. And it did, and they've done that ever since. And then on the heels of that, not on the heels of me talking, but at that same initial board meeting when he told me I was going with him, he also said, we've got the National Congress of Special Constituencies was what it was called at the time, and we need a new physician delegate, and I think Phil would be a great new physician. And I went, wait, what? I'm getting volunteered for all kinds of stuff. I just wanted you to fix this, Sam. And so, but that got me engaged in that opportunity, and I also had the chance, as you did, to learn how to write resolutions and meet other family docs passionate about family medicine. I got to run, as you did, for new physician board member and did not get it. But I think it was the very first year it came about was that one of those years that I was there. And so that was just a great opportunity to meet those docs and still see a lot of them being delegates in the state now. And so, again, stayed involved with the State Academy and the National Academy ever since. It's just a great outlet. And it really gave me the impression I've heard this said about church in the past, but it's definitely true for the Oklahoma Academy of Family Physicians. The old saying about religion is that, the church isn't the building, the church is the people. The people are the church, the people do the work of the church. Right. And it's really the same thing. Is when I made that call to Sam, I had this impression in my mind that the Oklahoma Academy of Family Physicians was Sam and other people that were doing the work of representing family medicine. And going to that first board meeting, I realized, no, it's family docs taking the time to go and do the work of representing family medicine. So I got the opportunity to do that and have been able to, but then that's also something, and what I hope this podcast does is let other docs in Oklahoma know that door is wide open for them to come to board meetings, to be a board rep, to do these different things at the state and local level, to advocate for family medicine statewide and nationally, and get skills on advocating in their local communities and get resources that the State Academy and the National Academy has. And so it's just been a great, exciting thing for me, legislative committee over the years, and being Doctor of the Day and talking to different representatives and senators about different issues over the years, and the state and national advocacy programs, just kind of being a liaison and talking to people and utilizing Speak Out that the AAFP has to have an easy, quick way to communicate with legislators about issues that are important to family medicine. Just wonderful opportunities out there that have been fun for me to be a part of. And like I said, want to make sure all the docs in our state have that opportunity to be involved as I've been.
Yeah, I think that's my next step, sir, is I need to reach out to legislators and get to know them. I don't think I've done that yet, but it speaks volumes of how involved you are and how much you do, right? And between your teaching responsibilities and call and advocacy, I had a question for you. How do you manage all this, right? How do you create that work-life balance and allocate time for everything? What advice do you have?
If you'd ask my wife, the balance isn't where it needs to be.
Okay.
But my wife's just been incredibly supportive over the years. I think a lot of it is just, I don't know. That's a great question, and it's not something I've been intentional about day in and day out per se, but it was just something from the get-go that I knew that medicine can be so consuming. And I knew that no matter what opportunities I had in medicine, that I wanted to be there and engaged in my kids' lives while they were growing up and have opportunities to be with my wife and do things with my wife. And so from even back in the early days of residency, made it a point to have date nights with her and take times to do things with the kids and to seize vacation time when it was there.
Right.
And I know that gets harder for practicing docs that don't get paid vacation as I do as an employed doc, that when you have to stop working and stop your income to go on a trip, there's a whole different mindset than if your salary continues because you have paid leave. And so I've been fortunate in that regard, but because I've had that, that's something that I've made a point of. Don't leave any vacation days on the table. Use that up. Go do something. Be with my wife. Be with my kids. Have those opportunities to make memories together. And it's gotten harder over the years. I mean, volunteering to do the Army is certainly something that I felt like God wanted me to do. It's been a great blessing over the years, wonderful opportunities, but there have also been 4 times that I was gone from my family for 3.5 to 4 months. And so that's tough. And it's tough to come back and get into routines when your family's made a new routine over 4 months without you.
Wow.
And how do I integrate back in? And that's something that, again, our military members oftentimes are gone for a year and a half at a time, and then having to reintegrate back in with their family. And that's part of the stressors that members of the military have to deal with. And so just getting a taste of that after having been gone 3 to 4 months makes me very appreciative of the men and women of our country, but especially the state of Oklahoma, and being right here where Tinker is, being gone from their families for extended periods. But it's just that intentionality. And so it's not so much that, although sometimes I do schedule it, hey, we need a date. Let's pick a couple days on the schedule to have a date. Let's pick some days to invite some friends over to do stuff. So my schedule gets full enough. We've had to do that a lot of times over the years, but sometimes it's also just that commitment there that it's easy to say, I'm ready to leave work because I know what's going on at home is fun, and I want to see those people. As much fun as I'm having at work, or as important as it is for me to be engaged in what's going on in the hospital, those things continue on, and being gone helps, reinforce that. I get to play an important role as medical director of our clinic, but when I'm gone for 3 or 4 months, other people step in and do that, and the clinic keeps working, and the residency program keeps going, and my Sunday school class keeps happening, and even when I'm not there to teach, and different things like that. So those experiences also reinforce as much as I enjoy what I'm doing, or as important as I may think I am, or as important as other people may tell me I am, everybody's replaceable. And so I think that's kind of driven me to try and have a right perspective and not just go whole hog, so to speak, in one thing to the neglect of everything else. But how about you? How are you trying to do that as a younger doc? Because that's oftentimes really where the challenge is in your first, 3 to 10 years when you're getting your routines and habits in place. So what have you been doing to try and find that balance?
Definitely. Right after residency, I had just gotten married. I had bought a new house, moved back home, right? I was, pretty much born and raised here in Edmond, Oklahoma. Yeah, I got a new puppy, and then I got a new job, right? And it was hard. It was really hard. Like I still remember, Dr. Coleman sat me down my first week, and he was like, people are going to come ask you to do things. You got to learn how to say no, make family a priority. And, I still remember that. That still echoes in my ears. And, I may have been one of his colleagues, but gosh, he was still my program director. It's just I felt like a third-year resident still some days with him. No, I think you're right, sir. I think I prioritize. My wife, I'm so incredibly grateful to her because she's understanding when I have things to do. And then we make time for each other. We don't have kids yet. I have just become an uncle. So
hey,
my brother just had a baby. Yeah. And little Abiram, shout out my boy, waiting for him to be a huge part of our lives. And I'm really excited about that. So that'll probably take up some of my time. But I prioritize. I think whenever I think about it, I think, hey, is my life being a physician, or is being a physician part of my life? I think I aim for the latter, and I try to involve myself in other aspects. I was teaching a Sunday school type thing, our youth group with our temple for a while, and that was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. And I still allocate time for my friends. So like we've got a group of us that 2 guys that I grew up with here, and my wife is really good friends with their wives too. Like once a month we have brunch with the boys. So we're trying a new brunch place, and we have a lot of friends here on Tuesdays. One Tuesday or Thursdays, my wife has girls' night. So the husbands of all those girls, we go out to eat, and so we take time for ourselves, and at the same time making my patients a priority, making my interests a priority. It does take up some of my weekend time, but I'm learning how to try to tail back a little bit and be more mindful of that work-life balance. But I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's a difficult skill. One of the episodes, Dr. Abby Woods talked about this and how she does it, and I'm like, dang, that's very inspiring. Got to work on that. Very useful skills and recommendations she gave, even if it's like admin burden that comes home with you from work.
Right.
And so, a lot of things, sir. I mean, speaking of work-life balance, where you work with students and residents, and I had that experience and still have students in my clinic. You have any advice you would give them? People are listening in, or still in their student stage, or maybe residents that may be listening about family medicine in general or their careers.
Yeah, I think there's several things I'd say, and one of them is exactly what you said, and what Brian encouraged you. Yeah. But your comment that, and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as you just did, but something to the effect of, you're not a doctor. You're someone who happens to be a doctor, who happens to practice medicine. And so I think understanding that you are not your job. Your job is something you get to do, and it's a great thing, and it's a great opportunity. But each of us are so many different things. Yeah. We're spouses, we're parents, we're children, we're whatever we do in the community and elsewhere outside the realm of medicine, and then also what we have in medicine. So not making our job our identity, but having an identity that includes the job is, I think, one thing that I would encourage students and residents to have that mindset going forward.
Yeah.
But the other big thing I would tell them is don't make a decision too early. Don't set your mind. Don't make up your mind too early.
Yeah.
Just as you said as a student, I mean, if you're like, I'm just going to do pediatrics and I'm not going to pay that much attention on other these rotations because I know exactly what I want to do, then you'd have missed other opportunities. Yeah. And I think the same thing is true even as a resident. When someone's in their family medicine residency, they know they're going to be a family medicine doctor, But what does that look like?
Exactly.
Are you going to be urban? Are you going to be rural?
Right.
How much orthopedic care are you going to deliver on your own versus referring them out? How much nutrition education are you going to be able to give your patients and help them with stuff? And so I think there's opportunities that residents have to learn inpatient medicine, to learn cardiology, to learn obesity, lifestyle medicine interventions that they can focus on. I just know I want to do this, and I don't think I really want to do that.
Yeah.
But if they gave themselves the opportunity to spend a month doing that thing they don't think they want, it might change their mind, and they might find something they really, really, truly love and that they're really passionate about. And so I think that's my advice for students and residents is even if you know what you want to do a whole bunch of other stuff every opportunity you get. Stretch your wings, try different things with elective experiences because you might find yourself doing something different, adding something to your practice that you're really, really going to enjoy.
Yeah. That's great, sir.
How about you? You're much closer to that transition than I am. What advice do you have for people coming along behind you?
You know, when I think about that, and I tell these to my students who come rotate with me all the time, and to my residents when I was working with them, and some of them still call me, which is really nice to that you've made that impression and still have that relationship, and it's really great. I think the biggest thing I had was coming out of training. You have this fear that maybe you don't know everything, and you don't fit in here, and you're not like the person you thought you were. That imposter syndrome, and we internalize all these negative thoughts, and I try to tell my my learners that is natural, and that imposter syndrome will be there, but you've done this training, it's hard to get into medical school and get through medical school. It's hard to get into residency and get through residency, and so it's not just the how much you've done and you gotta be reading all the time and learning all the time, but I think fear is healthy, right? So you're double checking yourself, and medicine's always changing, and it's always good to learn things that are new and keeping expanding, like you said, expanding your wings and learning things new and broadening your horizons. But it's also important to internalize the positive things and the accomplishments you've done, because if you, I think self-love is one of the purest forms of love. Because if you can't love yourself, how can you love what you do and everything else? Positive self-talk is key, and I just tell them to give themselves some grace. And I think that's something that's kind of helped me moving forward. I mean, even to this day, I have imposter syndrome. I have UpToDate on my phone. You know what I mean? I have so much CME on there, and I think that's what a lot of the learners need to remember, is that you guys are great. You're doing awesome.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, gosh, Veer, I like you even more than I did before.
Oh,
we should keep doing this.
We should. I
keep
love this. This is great.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. So that's right. So for those that are listening or watching, if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please go to the Oklahoma Academy of Family Physicians webpage. There's a link for Fast Talks with Family Docs, and let us know about you and what you do and your passion regarding family medicine. And we'd love to talk to you more and see if we can share that with the rest of the state. And if you have an interesting case that you would like to share with the listeners of our podcast, you can go to that same link and get in touch with us about that. That's a new feature we hope to be rolling out over the next few months. But for now, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us today. The doctors would like to see you back for another check-in. Please choose to follow our podcast, and you will automatically be notified when it's time for your next appointment.